What happens when you have an air cooler that can beat a 360 AIO? I know that's usually something where we go into myths and legends and stuff like that, but Valkyrie presented us that AIO that I did last time, Dragonfang 360, and today we have Wind SL125. So this one actually performed quite shockingly good. And I didn't expect that, to be honest. I didn't. I expected to act as an air cooler slightly worse than a 360 or even slightly worse than 280. But this one actually performs quite good. And just to give you a bit of a heads up, when I tested the 360 against this one, I used the same case, same fans, everything, well, basically the same fans. I use the fans that are on the AIO and I use the fans that are on the Wind SL125. So, before we go into those details, let's check the box contents. So what you get inside is the passive heatsink of the Wind SL125. You get two 120mm fans, we'll get to them later on. I think you might find them quite familiar. Then we get, this is a additional magnetic cover that goes right here on top if you don't want to use the original Valkyrie logo here with the black finish. You can use this one. It's all up to you, to your personal preferences, and it's quite easy to remove it and place it right back, so you can see that it's really not big of a hassle. Then we have a PWM splitter, since we have two fans, so you can connect them to one header on your motherboard, which gives you quite ease of cable management and stuff like that. In terms when we're talking about the packaging content, and I mentioned that already with Dragonfang 360. Now, for me, when I unbox a product, of course, the package is going to impress me even more, not because of the product and the performance and all the other stuff. I'll take that aside. I'm just, in this scenario, looking at a product as how it is boxed. So it's not that it's going to give more points to the performance, because it won't, of course, and logical. But unboxing a product that is boxed as such, to have certain let's say additional satisfaction to the whole process of unboxing, placing it on in your PC, placing everything back, you know, having a cool box actually, right? And the way it's secured inside, additional points. But that's just for the product in general, not the performance, of course. That goes in a separate container, let's put it that way, in a separate segment. And you can see the accessory, oh sorry, you can see the accessory box, how it's packed. This is outstanding. Everything is nicely separated, everything is written here. You can't miss anything. And of course you do have a user's manual, which is another story for another thing. But regardless of that, big thumbs up. I do have to say, this is the second product from Valkyrie that I'm reviewing, and their box content is outstanding. Now, when we take into consideration some specifications regarding the actual cooler, what we have here is the height of 158 millimeters, which is good because in most cases it fits perfectly, because some standard mid-tower cases go up to 160. Then we have 6x6 millimeters high performance composite heat pipes. We have 50 radiator fins. The whole weight is 2.5 kilos. Base and pipe material is copper. Radiator fins are aluminum. We have reflow soldering when it comes to manufacturing process. The TDP is up to 230 watts. Fans. These fans are Valkyrie X12, which you've seen in white version, but we have one which is in normal direction, and then we have another one which is reversed, so that doesn't confuse you when you see the actual close-ups of the fan. And then we have the standard dimensions, 120 times 25. You have enough clearance for the IO cover, and you have enough clearance for your RAMs. Outstanding. Speed of the fans is going from 800 to 2150 RPMs. Noise level is up to 29 decibels and the CFM is 80, while the static pressure is 3.14 millimeters H2O. You have addressable RGB on the fans, and you have these two, I don't know what they are, I don't know what to call them, but it's outstanding. When we're talking about the connection, you do have loads of cables, but it's what it is. We can't beat that. We have, for each fan, you have PWM 4-pin, of course, and you have addressable RGB header, which is 3-pin 5 volts. header, and they split up so you can daisy chain them. And of course the tower, because of these additional parts that also light up, you have addressable RGB header as well, which you can easily connect and daisy chain everything all together. That's quite cool. Quite easy. The only thing that you have is a bunch of cables that need to be connected, and as you can see, the passive part is nicely painted in black, so it fits and blends into everything. Love the design. I do have to admit, love the fans, because we saw them at Dragonfang 360. Those were white. Here we have the black version, as already stated. And swapping the panel is quite easy, and you have this part right here. Attention to detail is outstanding, because the locking nuts, locking screws that fixate the plates on the motherboard also have a Valkyrie logo. So that's outstanding. When we're talking about the placement of the CPU tower cooler on your processor, depending on the CPU that you're using, Intel or AMD, it's practically almost the same. You have standoffs with threads, either for Intel or AMD, depends what you're using, and of course you have a backplate for the Intel socket. Now, since I used AMD, you only use the standoffs with threads for the AMD. You use the wider threads to mount inside the motherboard, and then you use two longer locking plates, or plates, whatever you want to call them, on them. It's quite easy. There's nothing left to do except use those nicely designed thumb screws to lock it in position. The only thing that you could do eventually, and additionally, if you think tying up with your hands is not enough, you have some sort of let's say a plastic screwdriver that goes around those thumb screws, and you can tighten it additionally just in case. Then what you need to do is use the passive heatsink without the fans, tie up evenly the screws on the side, because you already have nicely pre-applied thermal paste at the bottom, which is outstanding. And then after you lock the passive heatsink into the position, you place the two fans accordingly. Don't forget, one fan is reversed, so be careful when placing, and the orientation, of course, so you don't create some blockage of air, because there won't be anywhere for the air to go out except these sides. Well, at least I think. Now, the next part is, of course, connecting the cables. As already said, you have 3 addressable RGB headers. 2 of them are daisy chainable, and that's quite enough to connect the passive heatsink, which has RGB, with 2 fans. That will be quite enough. And then you have 2 PWM for each fan, 1 for each fan, and Y splitter that goes to your motherboard, where you connect for the CPU fan 1. And that's all there is to it. Now for the benchmarks, right? I used the Antec P20C, the addressable RGB version, and I placed inside the Valkyrie VIND SL125 compared to Antec Vortex 360 RGB. It doesn't matter. The only difference in the whole configuration is the rear fan. I use the Valkyrie's X12 at the rear for testing out this tower cooler, and when I use the Vortex 360, I use their Fusion 120 fan. So that's the only difference in configuration. The additional configuration that Vortex could have as an advantage is that the radiator was placed on top. So there's that. Now, when we take a look at everything here, we have this. I used AMD Ryzen 9 7900X3D and the PNY GeForce RTX 4080 Verto Epic X RGB. The CPU went up to 92 degrees with Valkyrie. 4900 MHz was the clock speed, and the GPU went up to 51 degrees Celsius, which is quite alright, outstanding. And I thought that Vortex 360 will keep it at 90. Well, it didn't. CPU went up to 93, the clock speed was 48, 175 MHz, and well, the GPU went up to 53, so I don't know if this kind of makes sense. 30-minute test, 100% on the fans. And now we go into Cinebench. Now, as you can see in the graph, the Wind SL125 had some sort of a temperatures between 85 and 86 at the beginning, and at the end it was 85, in the middle-ish it was 86, and the clock speed was going from 4900s to 49, even touching 4950. The scores started at 26,000 and something smaller, and it was quite stable until it actually goes up to 26,253, 266, and it kind of varied for 200s in that segment. Now when we take Vortex 360, we got 89 to 90 degrees Celsius depending, and the clock speeds went up to 4800 to 4850. Now the scores, it's from 200 to 400 lower than with the Wind SL125. Everything was the same. Again, I have to repeat that. Everything was the same. CPU, GPU, front fans, case, power supply, RAM speeds, literally everything. Room temperature, everything. It started at 25,666. So that's 400 up to 400 Cinebench points less. And then at some point it almost even with the Wind SL125. And it stayed stable at 25,900s, 800s, well, almost touching 900s. But to be honest, I expected it at least to pass 26,000 points, which is quite alright for the AIO. For the Valkyrie Wind SL125, it's outstanding. And I don't know, I've seen similar passive heatsinks before. I haven't tested these type of fans compared to Dragonfang 360. If we exclude that, I haven't seen such a performance when we're talking about the fans, but apparently they do perform outstanding, and these are the results. You can't change that much when we're talking about the passive heatsink, except for the connection to the base and the way it's soldered and everything else, but maybe that does the trick as well. So I'll leave it at that, because these parts take a bit of a more detailed trashing the CPU tower cooler, trashing the Vortex 360, and going into loads of details and examining everything what's happening inside both parts and products. So yeah, I'll leave it at that and don't want to go into those segments. But as I already stated, Valkyrie Wind SL125 CPU tower cooler is an outstanding air cooler. Really, I do have to say. And because of it, I think you know what's happening next. PC Crazy Performance Badge. For the second Valkyrie product, we get a second performance badge. I have more Valkyrie products ready to be tested and reviewed, and hopefully I'll be able to do the comparison in the same configuration as I did for the Dragonfang and for the Wind SL125 to give you more constructive feedback on it and everything else. But so far they are really impressive, and I can't wait to show you the other products because I'm eager to check those out as well. So guys, thank you for watching today's video. The Wind SL125 link is or will be in the description depending on the launch and everything that will be available. So do regularly check and I will update it as soon as possible. Also, you can follow them on their social media just in case if I don't accidentally update the links on time. So check their social medias because they will most likely be pumping the updates quite shortly. That will be all for today, guys. Thank you for sticking by on this review. Don't forget to sub, like, and hit the notification bell. Well, if for nothing else, so you don't miss future Valkyrie products. Thanks for watching. See you next time, guys. Bye-bye.